In the distant corners of the galaxy, where stars flicker like forgotten candles and silence stretches beyond time's grasp, a small planet revolved quietly around its faint red sun. It cradled the last traces of a noble alien race, abandoned by a galaxy that had wiped their existence from maps, councils, and histories. No ships visited, no transmissions reached them, and no aid ever arrived. The Yalari were a wise, gentle people, their ways rooted in peace and understanding, qualities unwelcome in a galaxy governed by power, weaponry, and political schemes. Once, millennia ago, they had nurtured fledgling civilizations, healed fractured worlds, and taught early starfarers the secrets of hyperspace navigation. But those acts of kindness were long forgotten. When alliances grew corrupt and wars demanded allegiances, the Yalari refused to partake, and for that, they were exiled and erased. For over 5 centuries, they endured in quiet solitude until that silence broke. It started with an enigmatic signal, faint and unfamiliar, unlike anything from council fleets, pirates, or even scavengers. Its origin was human, Terrans, the newest players on the galactic stage. These were beings who, despite their brief history among the stars, disrupted the cosmic order with their unpredictable ingenuity and audacious spirit. The signal carried no threat. It wasn't even a plea. It was simply a simple phrase, spoken in a dozen languages and repeated steadily like a heartbeat. "We see you. We are coming." The Yalari elders were bewildered. Humans had never mentioned the Yalari, had no knowledge of their existence, and, as far as the elders knew, had never even heard of their remote world, hidden far from trade routes and communication networks. So why now? Why them? And then the stars shifted. A Terran scout ship appeared at the system's edge. It didn't conceal itself, didn't provoke, and didn't threaten. It simply scanned, slowly, carefully, before vanishing. Days later, more ships arrived. Then more still, until one morning the skies over Yalari's world shimmered with a constellation of silver specks. The Terran fleet had arrived. But these weren't warships. They were old, patched vessels, part civilian, part military, adorned with layered armor and unusual technology. Their designs were rough, chaotic, and strangely beautiful, reflecting resilience and ingenuity born of hardship. The flagship, a long, spine-like vessel, broadcast a message. A human voice, calm and resolute, rang out across the planet. "We know what the galaxy did to you. We know you stood alone. We don't forget those who chose peace, even when others did." The words shook the elders to their core. How had humans discovered the truth? How had they found the Yalari after all this time? There was little time to ponder. 2 days later, the stars stirred once more, but this time, it wasn't hope that arrived. A vast fleet of the Galactic Council entered the system, their intent clear. They hadn't come to welcome the Yalari or acknowledge the Terrans. They had come to crush whatever alliance might be forming, for in the Council's eyes, anything touched by humanity was a threat. Human loyalty was a force greater than their weapons, for once humans committed to something, they never let go. Warnings flooded the Terran ships. "Leave immediately. This is Council-controlled space. Any interference will be met with force." The Terrans did not retreat. Instead, they opened a new channel, broadcasting to both the Council fleet and the Yalari. "You abandoned them. We did not. If standing with the forgotten is a crime, then so be it." And that was when the silence shattered. For the first time in centuries, the skies above Yalar roared, not with fear, not with violence, but with the power of a promise fulfilled. Though no weapon had been fired, the galaxy itself seemed to tremble under the weight of the moment. The Yalari were no longer alone. The Council had miscalculated. As the human commander's message ended, an eerie stillness engulfed the system. It wasn't that no one had anything to say. It was that every mind, every ship, and every leader in the council fleet was paralyzed by shock. Was this defiance madness, bravery, or something far more dangerous? Never before had a species so young, so new, dared to challenge the Galactic Council so openly, not with weapons or threats, but with a simple declaration that struck harder than any cannon. Council Admiral Krazel, a towering insectoid with razor-sharp limbs, paced the bridge of his command ship in sharp, agitated movements. Admiral Krazel's fangs glinted as he hissed, "Then we should strike now, before more arrive, before this becomes a symbol." But another admiral, an elder with golden feathers that shimmered in the dim light, shook his head and replied solemnly, "It already is a symbol, Krazel. This moment has already become legend." Meanwhile, on the surface of Yellar, the Yellari watched in quiet awe, their wide eyes reflecting the sight of massive ships hovering above, not as conquerors, but as guardians. The elders convened beneath the crystal dome, a place that once hosted discussions with other species, back when the galaxy still acknowledged them. For the first time in generations, the hall was filled. A young Yellari, their gaze full of courage and curiosity, broke the silence. "Why do they stand with us?" The eldest, who had once spoken to the leaders of countless races before the long silence, answered with a voice steeped in reverence and sorrow, "Because they know what it is to be forgotten, and they understand the power of remembering." Above, in the void of space, the council reached a decision, but it was not the one anyone expected. They chose to wait. No attack, not yet. Instead, a final message was sent to the Terran fleet. "This is your only chance to withdraw without conflict. If you stay, war will follow." The humans answered with just 5 words. "Then we will stand here. No threats, no fury, just the unyielding truth." For the Terrans, the decision wasn't made by orders or strategy. It was rooted in something deeper, a belief that doing what was right was worth any cost. Across the galaxy, countless worlds watched in tense anticipation. Something had shifted, and the storm was only beginning. The silence between the fleets eventually fractured. It started with a single pulse, a small, fast signal from a minor council warship at the system's edge. Whether it was a provocation or an accident, no one could say. But that single scan, aimed at the human flagship, shattered the fragile balance. Aboard the Terran ship Defiant Dawn, soft alarms echoed through the corridors, steady and calm. Commander Hale stood at the center of the bridge, his eyes narrowing as he observed the scan ripple across the hull like a fleeting shimmer of light. He didn't flinch, didn't speak immediately. Instead, he stood in a heavy, deliberate silence, his gaze locked on the image displayed before him. Commander Hale studied the council ship on the main screen, alert for any further moves. Beside him, Lieutenant Rye leaned forward quietly. "They're probing our shields, testing our strength." Hale nodded slowly. "And now they've made their decision." He gave a brief command, but it thundered through the Terran fleet like steel wrapped in thunder. "Activate defensive positions. Do not fire unless fired upon." In orbit, the Terran ships shifted with deliberate calm, forming a shield around the Yellari world, not aggressive, not threatening, but impossible to ignore. Their formation wasn't flashy, nor advanced by galactic standards, but it was solid, clear, and carried one undeniable message: you will go through us to reach them. Panic swept through the Council fleet. On command decks across the alien ships, voices clashed, some pleading restraint, others demanding a strike before more humans arrived. Fear tangled with pride and old grudges, stirring shadows from the past. Admiral Krazel, pushed to the edge, finally gave the order he'd long awaited. "Fire a warning shot. Let them feel our power." A single plasma beam, bright and burning like a false sunrise, sliced through the stars, skimming dangerously close to the human flagship. It wasn't meant to hit, but it was loud. Inside Defiant Dawn, the crew froze, tense and silent. Commander Hale remained calm. He turned to the communications officer. "Open the channel wideband. Let everyone hear this." In a voice cold as the void of space, Hale spoke. "This is Commander Hale of the Terran fleet. You have fired the first shot. You have declared your intentions. Now, we will show you ours." The message ended. At that moment, the human ships moved, not in chaos, but with deadly precision. Engines roared, weapons charged silently, and they shifted forward just enough to signal that there would be no more warnings. On the Council side, panic turned to fury. Outer ships locked targets and unleashed. A barrage, red beams and blue bolts streaking fiercely across space. The human fleet responded, not with words or signals, but with a storm of fire that painted the darkness. Their ships moved like a pack, perfectly coordinated as if trained for this very moment, each pilot and captain ready for the battle they'd long expected. The first Council ship that came too close vanished in a blast of white light. The second lost its engines and drifted helplessly through space. The third tried to escape, but was cornered by two smaller Terran fighters and destroyed in silence. The Yllari watched from below, the sky flashing with deadly light, fearing the end was near. But then they saw something unforgettable. The humans were not attacking them. The fire raged above and around their world, but never against it. Humanity wasn't just fighting, they were defending. On the Council flagship, Admiral Krazel roared in fury. This was supposed to be an easy victory. They were meant to force the humans to retreat, but his rage was drowned out by alarms as one of their cruisers exploded far away, torn apart by a human railgun shot that crossed half the system in minutes. The battle had changed. What began as a Council show of strength was turning into a fiery warning. They had provoked a force they didn't understand. Humanity responded not with speeches or threats, but with action. For the humans, this was never just a war. It was a promise to those forgotten. And now, the stars burned with that promise. The spark had ignited, and the war was truly underway. The fight grew louder. Council ships, once confident in their numbers and technology, found themselves pushed back every second, their battle lines fractured, scattered, uncertain. At the edge of the Yllari system, space burned with fire and debris as ship after ship exploded into dust, wreckage drifting slowly in the void. Yet the humans pressed on. Each Terran vessel moved as part of a single living entity, fast, powerful, and merciless to any enemy daring to approach the planet they vowed to protect. Their shields glowed under fire, but held firm. Their weapons struck like hammers, quick and relentless. Without hesitation, the Terran weapons aimed, not to intimidate, but to end the fight swiftly. Commander Hale stood calmly on the bridge of Defiant Dawn, watching red markers vanish from the tactical screen. Despite victory, his face showed no pride or arrogance, only sharp focus. "They're retreating," Lieutenant Rye's voice broke with disbelief. "The Council. They're actually pulling back." Hale nodded once. They had come with fear, but now faced something far worse. Council. Ships began to fall into full retreat, yet not all escaped. Human fighters pursued the slower vessels, targeting only those who had fired, those who joined the assault. It wasn't slaughter, it was precision, and that made it all the more terrifying. From the ground, the Yllari gazed upward, their skies, alive with flashes of color. They had lived under fear for generations, told they were weak, ruled by the Council, and abandoned. But today, hope had returned. Elder Voss, oldest among the Yllari leaders, stood at the edge of their command center, eyes wide with disbelief. "They're not just winning," he whispered. They're teaching the council a lesson no one will forget. Around him, younger leaders, once unsure of trusting outsiders, watched in silence as human ships fought like legends from ancient tales. Above, a desperate council cruiser fired one final massive beam, glowing bright blue, aimed at the largest human ship. The blast struck Defiant Dawn dead center. For a heartbeat, silence fell. The Terran flagship vanished behind smoke and energy. Council officers cheered. But when the smoke cleared, the human ship remained, its shields flickering but holding strong. Then came the reply, not in words or rage, but in fire. A wave of pulse cannons, rail guns, and missiles tore through space, striking the council cruiser. It broke in two before it could fire again, its wreckage scattering across the battlefield. No longer a threat, just another warning. From that moment, council fleets fled faster. No more attacks, no more heroic last stands, only panic. The humans did not pursue. They stopped, letting the cowards run. Because their mission was never to kill, but to protect, to send a message so loud even the stars had to listen. Back on Earth, the Terran High Command received the reports. The room was silent as the news confirmed the same truth. The Council had attacked, and humanity had stood firm. General Strong leaned back in his chair, hands folded, his voice calm yet commanding. It's done. Now the galaxy knows what happens when you harm those we protect. But as the Council nursed its wounds and the Yalari world breathed peace for the first time in years, a shadow passed across the stars. Deep within the Council's hidden chambers, something darker stirred. Angry, unyielding, unwilling to accept. Defeat. It would not remain silent for long, but for now, in the quiet. Above the Yalari skies, the human ships floated like guardians, watching, waiting, ready. Their shields had held, their spirits soared. But the war was far from over, far from the shattered battlefield where Council forces had tasted defeat. Deep within hidden sectors of space where stars rarely shone and maps lay blank, silence reigned, not peaceful, but the kind that unsettled even mighty empires. Like something terrible was rising from the dark to swallow everything whole. In one of the oldest, most secret council fortresses, a group of shadowy leaders gathered. These were no politicians, no generals. They were the hidden voices behind. The council, the true decision-makers who controlled the fate of planets with a single word. Today, those words trembled. They were not supposed to be this strong, whispered a figure cloaked in deep green, face hidden behind a metal mask, voice thick with fear and anger. Humanity is primitive, wild, late to the stars. Another hissed sharply, long fingers tapping. The cold table. And yet they pushed back our entire assault. They made us run. Silence fell. No one denied it. The truth was undeniable. What they had feared in secret for years was now real. Humanity had evolved, not just in ships and weapons, but in unity, discipline, and purpose. They didn't fight for glory or control. They fought only when crossed, and then they struck like thunder. They helped the Yalari, one voice spat with disgust, a race no one dared protect. Yes, another agreed grimly. That was the real threat. Not weapons, not ships, but hope. And so, in that dark room filled with whispers and dread, a plan took shape. Not open war, but quiet, careful sabotage. Lies and traps set far from any battlefield, ready to be triggered. But as they plotted in shadows, unaware, something crucial was happening. Humans were already listening. Back on the Defiant Dawn, the human flagship, a special division called ShadowNet had intercepted strange communication signals, coded, hidden, and ancient, meant to stay invisible. But nothing stayed hidden from ShadowNet for long. They cracked it piece by piece. "They're planning something," whispered Agent Ryland, lead intelligence officer, eyes locked on the decoded message. Something big. Something quiet. Commander Hale standing by the large screen showing. Endless stars outside did not flinch. They know they can't fight us in the light anymore, so they'll come from the dark. Then we go into the dark too, Agent Ryland said. Meanwhile, the Yllari began to rebuild, with human engineers working alongside them and Terran medics tending the wounded. The once broken race now stood taller, no longer alone, no longer helpless. But even as homes were repaired and skies cleared, they knew the war was far from over. The stars were still whispering, and not all whispers were kind. High above, orbiting silently like watchful shadows, several human dreadnoughts floated cloaked and waiting, ready for anything. Humanity had learned something crucial. The real fight didn't always start with a battle cry. Sometimes it began in silence and ended with something breaking apart. Back on Earth, deep within the Terran intelligence network, a file was opened, marked with one name, the Hidden Circle phase. 2, humanity would not strike first, but when the shadows moved, they would be ready. In the quiet dark of deep space, where stars were mere pinpricks of light and even time slowed, a single human vessel glided like a ghost. No lights, no signals, no sound. Only purpose. Its name, Silent Arrow. Its mission, dangerous, secret, and unlike any before. Commander Elandra Voss stood on the bridge of Silent Arrow, eyes fixed on the screen showing nothing but endless space. Yet she knew they were not alone. Far ahead, hiding in shadows, lurked something far more dangerous than any enemy ship, the secret arm of the Galactic Council, known as the Hidden Circle. This group did not wage war with fleets or bombs. They used corruption, lies, sabotage, and betrayal, and now they had made one mistake. They had whispered too loudly. "We have their signal," said Lieutenant Kor. "They think they're safe, Commander. They don't know we're here." Elandra didn't smile. This mission wasn't about pride or revenge. It was about protecting the future. ShadowNet confirmed their base coordinates. "Are you sure?" she asked, already knowing the answer. "Yes, ma'am," Kor replied. "They're hiding on the moon of Virex 9, deep underground. Old tech, minimal guards. They never expected anyone to come this far out." "Good," Elandra said, voice steady. "We'll show them that shadows are no longer safe." Far away, on Earth, inside Terran Command HQ, Admiral Theo Marcus watched the live intelligence feed from Silent Arrow. Around him stood top officials from Earth's military and diplomatic branches. No one spoke for several minutes. The weight in the room was unmistakable. This was not just a countermission. This was a message. "They tried to turn the galaxy against us in secret," Theo said slowly, pointing at the red dots on the map. "They spread lies, twisted history, made people fear humanity. But now, we're in their house, and we're going to clean it." Back in space, as the Silent Arrow slipped closer to Virex 9's moon, small stealth drones launched from its belly, silent, invisible, and fast, diving through the darkness like sparks of death. Below the surface, the Hidden Circle was busy, sending encrypted messages, moving stolen data, planting seeds of false stories designed to make humanity look monstrous to other species. They didn't know every word was recorded. Every lie tracked, every second bringing them closer to exposure. Suddenly, without warning, the underground base went dark. Power shut off, doors sealed, communications blocked. The Hidden Circle members looked around in panic, their calm cracking. As red emergency lights flickered on and alarms screamed in a language older than most stars. "What's happening?" shouted one agent. "System fault?" "No!" another replied, voice shaking, eyes wide with fear as security cameras showed human shadows moving through tunnels, fast, clean, efficient. "They're here!" Elandra and her team moved like water, clearing rooms, seizing data cores, capturing agents who had never expected to face justice. It wasn't a fight, it was a cleanup. And it ended in less than 7 minutes. Later, inside the heart of the seized base, Elandra stood before a long glass table, its surface covered with evidence, proof of sabotage against Earth. Files exposing false stories planted in alien media, orders for assassination of human diplomats, plans to turn younger races against humanity before first contact. "We need to send this to every neutral species in the galaxy," Elandra said, recording a message. "Let them see who the real threat is. Let them see who never wanted peace." With that, the signal went out across the galaxy. From the icy cities of the Dravari to the sky-high spires of the Alari, millions watched as truth poured into their systems. The Council had lied. The humans had not started the war. They had only responded. And now they had brought light into the darkness. The hidden circle was broken. The galaxy began to wake. Still, the human fleet stood silent, ready. Because in the vastness of space, silence could mean peace, or it could mean something unstoppable was preparing to move again. The message spread faster than light itself. Every corner of the galaxy, every system, every species, friends and enemies alike, now saw the truth unfold before their eyes. The evidence from the Hidden Circle's base was raw and undeniable. No editing, no political filters, only facts. In the great halls of the Galactic Council, chaos replaced order. The chamber that once echoed with calm voices and careful words now roared with shouting, blame, and confusion. Many council members looked pale, others furious, some simply afraid that everything they had built on lies was crumbling to dust. "The humans, they exposed everything," shouted the High Minister of the Terry Confederacy, slamming his fist on the glowing table. "How? Did they even find the base?" hissed Councillor Dratic, a secret supporter of the Hidden Circle. "They should never have known it existed. They shouldn't have been able to get that deep into our space without detection," another councillor whispered bitterly. "They didn't need permission," a third murmured. "They just came, quiet, clean, precise, like judgment itself, as," the council argued. The center of the chamber came alive, a hologram of a single human figure standing tall above the circular table. It was Admiral Theo Marcus. This time, he was not here to negotiate. "This is not a threat," he began, voice steady and heavy with meaning. "This is not an act of revenge. This is justice. What you saw is real. The Hidden Circle, operating within your walls, manipulated your votes, your minds, and your history. They tried to break us using fear and lies." Council members sat still. Some swallowed nervously. Others couldn't meet the holograms. Gaze. Theo continued. "Humanity came to the stars for peace, not domination. We offered alliance, not control. But your silence, your betrayal, your schemes forced us to stand alone." He stepped closer to the holographic lens, his eyes sharp as blades. "Now, we are no longer asking for a seat at your table. We are building our own." That final sentence hit like a thunderclap across the galaxy. Young civilizations that had once feared humanity now watched in awe. They had seen Earth hold back for so long, tolerating insults, lies, sabotage, and blame. But now, for the first time, they saw the real strength behind the humans. Not just ships, not just soldiers, but unity and purpose. The same humans once dismissed as too emotional, too primitive, or too unpredictable had just dismantled a centuries-old network of lies with a single silent strike, and without firing a single shot. In the council chamber, aftershocks spread fast. World after world began to question the council's leadership. Riots broke out in neutral systems. Protests erupted in core worlds. Whispers of rebellion stirred in council-controlled colonies. Some species even sent secret messages to Earth, offering alliance, respect, and apologies. Back on Earth, inside the main command center, Admiral Theo stood beside Commander Elandra, Voss. Behind them, a massive display lit the room, showing the growing network of new allies and old enemies, a galaxy shifting beneath their feet. The massive display showed rising support for the new unified accord being built by humanity, an alliance of truth, not control. "The galaxy will never be the same," Elandra said quietly. Theo nodded, but his eyes didn't leave the screen. "It's not over yet, but the fire has started, and this time we lit it in space." The fleet that had remained still for so long began to move, not to attack, not to conquer, but to protect, to stand guard, to be seen. Thousands of human ships took position near key systems, not as invaders, but as watchers. And everywhere they went, fear slowly began to fade, replaced by something far more powerful. Hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, the stars no longer belonged to the few. Hope that the silence between the stars would no longer be filled with lies, but with truth. Hope that no forgotten race would ever stand alone again.